What is the role of effective speaking in your life? How the ability to speak good and effective can bring opportunities that can help you to build good relationships with people. Hi, my name is Darshan and I am here today to share with you 7 key factors or 7 key points that can help you to build good and effective communication skills. And if you want to know more about me and my work, then visit this link. Well, I know that I don't need to explain you the importance of effective and good speaking into our personal lives, because in today's world we have so many resources available that helps us to connect with each other for betterment of our lives. But although considering the fact that we know all these resources and we know the importance of effective communication, we still lag in leveraging the best possible use cases of words into a conversation. So no matter where do you live and what you do, the ability to speak good can drastically change your life in a positive direction and can also help you to create great relationships with people that can help you to create opportunities for your career and for your future. If you have ever observed the great leaders of the world, rather in the past or in the today's world, one thing that you notice common in all of them is that they were great speakers of their times. These people exactly know that which word needs to be used where and at what time and in what scenarios or in what cases. And this ability alone was the major variable for these peoples where they are and from where they impacted lives of millions of people. As Robert Brown says, if you can speak, you can influence. And if you can influence, you can change lives. Now let's start with the points. And the first point is that 50% of people are out of your scope. Now this first point is very important and try to understand it very carefully, because this point is not about building any skill or practicing any skill. This point is to make your understanding clear by clearing this mental thought that I want everyone I met to think that I am a good person. Now this single thought is the biggest reason why we feel tense and worried about what other people are saying or thinking about us. And this thought alone eats our complete mental energy, and slowly we start feeling uncomfortable and underconfident to talk with people. But let me tell you, my friend, just get rid of this mental block. You don't need to give this authority to any person that how you will feel based upon what other person has said about you, or if he disagrees with whatever you have said. Just keep your mind open and just say this to yourself that 50% of the population of world are out of my scope and I don't need to please them to make them feel good about me. And by just clearing this one mental thought, 50 to 60% of your problem related to communication, speaking, confidence gets solved automatically. We all have to seek this fact into our lives that we can only control the things which are within our scope and not the things which are out of our scope. The second point is to understand 2:1 game, which is to listen more and speak less. Now whatever conversation we have with people or whatever we speak, this all thing comes from the information which is stored into our mind, and this information is stored in the form of thoughts, and these thoughts are created when we try to seek the information from outside, which is from either reading or either listening or either watching. Now when any person has this tendency to speak more with the intention of dominating the conversation, so the one thing which that person miss in the urge of speaking more is that with the fact that he is speaking more, it is expected from him to know the factual information more based upon the context of the conversation. Now if the person lacks this point, whatever that person is saying in that conversation becomes irrelevant and the conversation automatically becomes less impactful and not that much worth remembering. Now if you have this kind of tendency within you, so I just want to give this suggestion to you that keep this constant thought into your mind that whenever you speak, you make sure that you know the factual information and the related information based upon the context of that conversation. And for that you need to build this basic habit of seeking information or taking inputs of information. Now this can be done by either reading, either listening, or by just observing or listening to people. Now when you do this again and again, you will slowly have more factual and more useful arguments based upon the context of the conversation, and slowly people will listen you more and will also try to remember the conversation or the things you have said. Now the third point is having a dialogue conversation than monologue. Now let's first understand the difference between this word dialogue and monologue. Any conversation or talk in which one person is speaking and others are listening are called as monologue conversation. For example, public talks, seminars, classes, these all are the examples of monologue conversation. And the dialogue conversation is exactly opposite of it. While having a conversation, when you give other person a chance to talk, and when that other person again allows you to talk, and when there is equal amount of contribution in speaking and listening by every person in the conversation, then that is called as dialogue conversation. Now the problem is that because we have spent large amount of our time in schools and colleges in the early years of our life, we all consider this notion that whenever there is a time to talk with any person, we all expect the other person to lead the conversation. And the irony is that probably that other person is also expecting the same thing from us. And this creates an issue. The solution to this problem is that whenever next time you are in the conversation with someone, try to lead the conversation, try to start talking first and slowly make other person or other people in the conversation to talk. And by this, you will slowly create this ability to lead the conversation, and this itself is the biggest point and ability in the better communication skills. Now the fourth point is asking more open-ended questions than close-ended questions. The key element of every good conversation is to have a transaction of good and healthy questions. Asking and receiving good questions is an integral part of a conversation when you want to make it memorable. Now as this point states, there are basically two types of questions that you can ask. One is open-ended question and second is close-ended question. Now let's first understand what is close-ended questions. Let's say if you ask a person, what is your name? That is a close-ended question because the answer to this question sums up in a single line. And the open-ended question is exactly opposite to it. When you ask a person a question for which the person takes a time to answer that question, and within that answer, you again get many open-ended as well as close-ended questions. And when this transaction happens again and again, it makes the ball rolling and probably it makes the conversation worth remembering. So let me give you an example of close-ended question. So let's say if you met a person, the first question you will ask is his or her name. Within the context of this example, let's say you can ask that I recently visited your city, and one thing that I observed there is that people are very self-centric and people have a very consumption mindset there. This is what I observe. Now, as I know that you live in that city from your childhood, what is your take on this point? Now, to answer this question, other person will require to prepare a base, and after that, when other person answers this question, it again gives you so many open-ended as well as close-ended question based upon the answer. Now, this makes the conversation very interesting, and probably at the end of the conversation, you will probably build a friendship with the other person. So this is the impact of asking more close-ended questions rather than open-ended. Now the fifth point is being honest and truthful. Now this statement may seem you very simple and obvious, but to be honest, we all bluff while having a conversation with people, and this happens so quickly into our minds that we don't even realize that we are losing our own real self while having a conversation with people. And to be honest, in today's world it works majorly in the businesses. But somehow if you can create this mental habit of being as you are in the 60% of the conversation that you have with people based upon the situation and based upon the context of the conversation, then you will find out that you will end up building a strong relationship with people, because who doesn't like to be with a person who's always authentic and who's always try to talk without any filters. So the sixth point is to learn to say no without side effects. Although saying no was never a problem in older days, when a person used to ask someone to do something and when that other person used to simply say no to it, then it was very normal in older days to accept that person's response without any judgment. But in today's world, people consider this response as a negative expression and as a sign of egoism and ignorance. But simply saying no when you actually have a reason to say no was never been a problem. If you say no to any person by having a legitimate reason, and if you simply say it with a smile on a face, then you shouldn't be judged by anyone for any reason. But unfortunately in today's world, this is a problem. And any person who is good in speaking and who is good in communication has figured out the solution to this problem, which is to say no as that you want to say yes. And my point here is that try to figure out your own way by which you can simply say no to other person. Now, one way which I try to implement in my own life is that whenever this kind of situation comes in front of me and whenever I need to say no to other person, I simply say him that although I want to say yes, but can I afford to say no? Now, this simple statement changes the expression of other person, and from the feeling of negative judgment, that person becomes curious to understand my reason, and almost 40 to 50% this thing works for me. So with this point, I conclude that try to figure out your own way to say no, or if you feel this way useful, then you can also use this way, which I have used as an example. Now the seventh and last point is to making sure to have presence of mind. Now our brain is structured in a way that it is constantly processing some kind of information. And in today's world, due to the overflow of information from internet, social media and from our surroundings, our mind is continuously busy with this overflow of information. And this keeps us busy with our thoughts, and this continuous chattering keeps going into our mind in the background, and this keeps us into this bubble of thoughts. And while having a conversation with someone, this actually affects the dialogue of what we are speaking. So the solution to this problem is that try to be conscious while having a conversation with someone. Just learn to flush out your thoughts whenever someone is speaking with you, and try to completely focus on what other person is saying, and this will help you to improve your listening abilities and observing abilities. And then when you respond to that person, you will feel that whatever you are saying has an impact and has a legitimate reasoning within it, and this makes the conversation with other person very smooth and worth remembering, and maybe other person will remember you for whatever you have said to him. So these were the points and factors that I think plays important role in building a good communication and good speaking skills, and I constantly try to implement these points into my own life by putting my thoughts very clearly and precisely while having a good conversation or while talking to someone. So if you felt this video useful and if you got any value from this video, then surely click that like button and share this video with your friends and family, because this is one of the essential skill which one can build into his life, and this can bring drastic changes into his or her life. And also comment down below that which point you like most from this video and which will you try to implement from today itself. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Namaste.
Eres perfecta mujer, de la cabeza a los pies. Tú pasas de mi nivel, tú tienes el piquete. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami. De la forma que tú besas, mami, más simétrica que un origami.